Hey everyone, welcome back to the second episode of Hacker Cooking. This is Nomadic, and today I'm going to show you how to cook a Mexican meatloaf. This meatloaf recipe is actually an old recipe that Sam the Cooking Guy did about 10 years ago. When I was a kid, my mom used to make it a ton, and it's something that I've continued to still make to this day. It is a super easy and delicious recipe, as you'll see, so let's get started. First thing you'll need is ground beef. I always go with the 80-20, but you can go as lean as you want. I always buy the tubes as well because it's exactly 1 pound and makes it easy on me, but you could absolutely use the stuff from the butcher. The next thing that we're going to use is 1 pound of Jimmy Dean sausage. This is the normal sausage, not the breakfast sausage, so there are no other additional flavors added to it. You could theoretically use the one with sage or maple, but it's going to change the flavor of the meatloaf. Therefore, I like to keep it simple and use the normal one. Next up, we're going to mix in 3/4 of a cup of breadcrumbs to act as a binder and hold everything together. Panko breadcrumbs are preferred, but you should be able to use whichever breadcrumbs you like. Next, we're going to add 1 fajita seasoning packet. You can usually pick these up from the store for pretty cheap. Now we're going to add 1 whole 4-ounce can of diced green chili peppers, juice and all. Be careful when you get these from the store because they're on the shelf next to the non-diced green chilies, and you'll be real bummed when you get home and you got the wrong ones. Now we're going to add 2 eggs. The eggs technically need to be beaten, but it won't matter once we mix everything together. Once you have all that in there, it is going to be time to mix everything together. Best thing to do is use your hands and make sure that everything is incorporated together. What we don't want is pockets of specific ingredients, so mix it really well. Now that everything is all mixed together, this is the consistency that you're going to want to look for with everything really well incorporated together. Next step is to put it in the pan, but if you do not have one, you can still put it on a baking sheet and just shape the mixture like a loaf. Make sure you spray the pan or put some foil to make cleanup much easier. I bought the meatloaf pan because the center comes out, making it easy to remove the meatloaf when it is done, and the holes in the center tray allow the fat to drain to the bottom. Now I'm going to put the entire mixture in the pan and push it down to make sure it's all even so that when it cooks evenly. This is what it should look like once you've got it in the pan. The next step is a glaze that's going to go on top of the meatloaf. We are going to need about 1.5 cups of ketchup. Next up is about 1/3 of a cup apricot jam. I personally prefer a little bit more of the jam than the ketchup, but taste it and make it to your liking. If you can't eat spicy food, then skip this step, but if you like a little heat, the next thing we're going to do is add 2 tablespoons of chipotle peppers and adobo. You should be able to get these from any normal grocery store. Finally chop the peppers and add this to your glaze. Not only is this going to add a little bit of heat, but it'll also add a little bit of smoky flavor as well. Now that the glaze is done, we're going to add 3/4 of the glaze to the top of the meatloaf, but make sure you save 1/4 to add to the meatloaf once it's finished. Once you get your glaze on, preheat the oven at 350 and bake for 45 minutes to an hour, or once the internal temperature is 155 to 160 degrees Fahrenheit. Alright, our meatloaf is done. It took about 53 minutes, and when I took it out and temped it, the internal temperature was right at 155. If I tried it right now, it's going to taste like lava, so I'm going to let it cool for about 10 minutes before I cut into it. Now that it's cooled off a bit, we're going to go ahead and cut it up. I suggest cutting it into 1-inch slices as it's pretty good portion size. Next, I'm going to take a little bit of the remaining glaze that we made earlier and add it to the slice that we cut out. There you have it, Mexican meatloaf. Next thing we need to do is go ahead and taste it. The meatloaf isn't dry, it melts in your mouth, which is why I personally like to use the 80-20. It has a little bit of heat and smokiness from the peppers, and it's sweet from the glaze. All around, it's super good. This recipe will usually feed 2 people unless you make a ton of sides to go with it. If you're a family of 4, I would suggest making at least 2 loaves. If for some miracle there's leftovers, which is highly unlikely, the leftovers are great the next day, or you can make a really good meatloaf sandwich, which might be a video in the future. I really hope you enjoyed episode 2. Thank you for letting me share with you all my favorite recipes. If you liked the video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. If you enjoy the content so far, smash that subscribe button as it really helps me grow the channel. This was Mexican Meatloaf on Hacker Cooking, Nomadic, signing off.